And the songs from Bob Marley that are pushed are the ones you hear in the resorts, right? But the songs like War and Crazy Ballheads.
Welcome to Message Reveal. Message Reveal identifies a vibe, a message, or a story told through lyrics of a song. Well, you guys, if you rock with me every Monday, I thank you. I appreciate you for coming and supporting me. But if you're new, thank you, subscribe, and please join us every Monday. But as I do every Monday when I have a special guest, I tell you a few things, and I mean only a few things about our special guest. So let's get started. One, our special guest is a urban garden specialist. We can't wait to dial in and find out more about that. Also, he's a connoisseur of reggae dance hall, and I think it's rock steady, and his time frame is 1983 to 1993. So we get to find some history about it, and I know I'm looking forward to that. And last but not least, he's a geologist. I've never had a geologist on. So I'm super excited. You guys, please put your hands together and welcome my special guest. And I hope I get his name right. And if I don't, he can correct me. Is Kwesi Joseph.
Thank you.
How are
Thanks
you, sir?
I'm doing well. You were close. It's Kwesi.
Kwesi. You
Yeah.
guys, it is
No,
Kwesi.
understood.
Well, thank you for saying yes. I so appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your time because you could be doing anything else on your Friday.
Thanks for having me.
You are more than welcome. So I don't know if you were able to capture this current season is about love. Believe in love. I believe in love, but we have sometimes gotten away and it's not the center anymore. It's kind of out in the ether. And I say all of that to say, can you identify a time in your life? It could be a person, place, or a thing that you kind of forgot about love, and then love has brought you back to the center.
Gardening.
Mm.
When I got into gardening, I was stressed out. This was 2011, and gardening got me to focus on nothing but the plants. And then by focusing on the plants, I learned how to slowly focus on myself.
Ooh, you're talking to somebody. So, what was the catalyst for you to begin to get into gardening?
I didn't know what I was doing. It was random. I wish I could say it was some divine, well, maybe it was divine intervention. But I didn't know what the hell was going on back in 2011. And we just got access to the backyard. My wife's great aunt had passed away. So we took over the garden floor, and there was a bunch of junk in there. My wife was like, let's clean it up. And I didn't want to do it. It took us like 5 weekends, putting stuff to the curb. And that's where it started. And I didn't know what I was doing. So about 2 blocks away, there was a community garden. And I would go there and pepper the garden manager with a bunch of questions. And it's a woman who is an USDA certified, a licensed urban farmer. And she's also an herbalist, and she taught me a lot about gardening. I also did a lot of reading about gardening. I did so much reading that my Google search profile thought that I was a retired, wealthy white woman.
Oh, you was in on it.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Wow. So let's talk about something so I met you at a conference,
Mm-hmm.
and in the conference, you have the opportunity to go through selected different workshops. And I came into your workshop, and something that was truly, truly fascinating to me that I had no idea about was rock dust. Can you just tell us a little bit how, one, you discovered rock dust and the benefits of it for the soil that a lot of people are not aware of?
Okay, so I have a degree in geology, so I know about the basic three types of rock, igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary. And the type of rock that is used for rock dust, for gardening, is an igneous rock named basalt. So when you see images of a volcano, about 70% of that stuff coming out of a volcano is basalt. So when it's dry, it's this dark, dense rock that's really high in the heavier metals. And it's those heavy metals or heavier metals that are critical to soil health. Soil needs about 18 elements to grow, and about half of them are trace or in very low supply. Because the typical soil makeup, soil or dirt is weathered rock. And the type of rock that's on the surface of the earth isn't that dark, dense rock. It's a lighter colored rock, typically granite. So that dark, dense rock only gets mixed into the soil where there used to be glaciers. That's why like upstate New York is really good for farming, or where a river flows through. So that river's been flowing for hundreds of miles over different types of rock and slowly deposits little chipped off pieces of that dark, dense rock. So, but also in areas, let's say in the Caribbean, where you have a volcano exploding ever so often, you will see an increase. Those plants will start going crazy a few days after that volcanic explosion, after that dust has settled. So it's those trace elements that are making the plants grow and go wild.
Wow. Can you throw out some trace elements that people may be aware of? Like one of them is, may I say, is it magnesium?
Yeah, it's magnesium or manganese. I usually get them confused, but it's one is Mg, one is Mn, but it's definitely iron. Magnesium or manganese. I should have memorized it. Copper, zinc, and copper and zinc are heavy metals, so you don't want too much because they can be toxic, but you do need them. Molybdenum, chlorine, um, and a few others, but those elements are trace and you need them. There's something called the law of the minimum, which basically means you're only as strong as your weakest link. So it's like us, if we don't take a multivitamin, we don't get those trace minerals in our body. It's the same thing for the soil. So the life in the soil is critical to plant health. And what we're doing, we're basically taking care of the life in the soil. The life in the soil uses those minerals and then converts it into a biological form that the plants can use. So without the life in the soil, there isn't that conversion and the plants can't take it up. So the plants and the life in the soil, they take care of each other.
Wow, that's amazing. And this also is, it applies to us as well. This is
Yes.
like a simulation of what they need is also what we need. So when we eat those plants, we also get those nutrients that allows us to go on and be healthy and do all those things as well, correct?
Yeah, right. In that workshop that I did, I had an equation which was healthy soil equals healthy plants equals healthy humans. So
Mm,
if you add trace elements to the soil, the life in the soil will convert it to something that's biologically available. And then those plants now will increase their nutrient density. So they will have more iron and zinc and copper and all those trace elements. So those plants will be more disease resistant. They will also have more of those trace elements. And then when we eat them, we will become more disease resistant because we will
wow.
have those trace elements in us.
So really, it's a symbiotic relationship. It's a eco-friendly, everybody, which really in reality, we all are connected in some form or fashion. And that's the same way in the plant world, correct?
Definitely. So what's been happening with conventional farming is there hasn't been that symbiosis. So we haven't been taking care of the topsoil. So what typically happens, let's say in a rainforest, you cut down the trees, right? The rainforest has a bunch of trees, but that soil is horrible. It's the topsoil, that black organic matter that sits in the top. That's where the life comes from. So when that's washed away and used up, then that soil, because it's been rained on so much, all that's left is clay particles, and thus that soil becomes clay and hard. Water doesn't penetrate, and you can't grow in it again. You can't grow in it again. So you have to take care of that soil by taking care of the life in it. So by increasing the organic matter, you will help assist in taking care of the life in the soil and by adding those trace elements.
Let me jump in and say you mentioned organic matter. Does that consist of composting?
Yes. So there are two ways to do it. You can compost. You can do composting, but as in New York City, what happens a lot is you have a bunch of rats, and the rats somehow get into they get into the compost bins, or they start living around the bins because of the heat. So they'll have their offspring underneath the bins, or inside the bins. So if you're worried about that, what you can do is grow something called cover crops, and those are crops that are either a legume, which fixes nitrogen in these nodules in the soil. They remove nitrogen from the air, and with the help of bacteria, they store it in the plants, in the roots of their plants. And then you have oats and stuff like that. So you have your browns and your greens, just like in a compost pit. And about 3 to 4 weeks before you're ready to plant in the spring, you chop that stuff up and bury it, and that will decompose and give you all of the NPK, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that you need for the growing season, especially the nitrogen, which is key. So you don't have to pay a bunch of money for synthetic fertilizers, and it's especially since in the Ukraine, the price of fertilizer has more than doubled. So you can grow
Wow.
it cheaply. And then when that stuff is buried, it starts to decompose. The bacterial activity is at its peak, and you can feed that bacteria rock dust. So that'd be a perfect time to sprinkle in the rock dust.
Wow. Okay. This is pretty interesting. I can keep going down this whole regarding rock dust and all the connections that come about that sometimes we're just not aware of. And I'm be very, I've been a novice. I am in the learning stage and it's really fascinating for me. But with that being said, we're gonna come back to that. But let's talk about music. Music has turned me all the way out in a great way. And I say all of that to say, can you identify a song that has either distracted you, provided blessings or lessons, and you can share with us? But before you answer, it's some rules to this.
Okay,
If you can sing, I need you to sing your throat box out. I
that's not
see you.
happening.
If you can rap, I need you to come hard in the face. But there's one last thing. If you cannot do either of those two, you can say it boldly. You can say the lyrics with confidence, or as we say in the streets, stand 10 toes down. You could say or give us the lyrics. So, do you have a song that you can identify and share with us that either provide a blessing, distractions, or lessons?
I have several in mind, so I have to narrow it. I'm gonna go with Boogie Down Productions, "Love's Gonna Get You."
Ooh, okay, okay. And why did you select this one?
Well, growing up as a poor kid in the United States, I'm not originally from the United States, but coming here, immigrating, definitely went down in social status. And, seeing that the kids with the flashy clothes and stuff getting all the attention, even though I wasn't about that life, hearing the lyrics to that song had a major influence on me in terms of, like, what are the long-term consequences of doing stuff like that to live that flashy life.
Mm,
So yeah, man, KRS-One, the teacher, edutainment, that stuff is real. Yeah, it had a
yeah.
big influence on me.
So since you said that, you have to provide some lyrics. You could just say it. You don't have to rap it, but give us some lyrics so my audience can have a gist of what it is, and then they'll get a chance to look it up.
I would have to look it up, but he starts off with, "I'm in junior high with a B+ grade. Um, Before I go home, I don't hit the arcade." I think it's something like that. And I used to go to the arcade. Or before I go home, I hit the arcade, something like that. But I used to go to the arcade after junior high. And junior high is when I immigrated. So I identified with that, and then it was about him doing errands for the local hustler in the street, and he's like, "I do it once, I do it twice. Now there's steak with the beans and rice." Um,
Ooh.
and he just speaks about him climbing up into becoming a mogul, and then things backfiring, and he ends off the chorus with Now tell me what the F am I supposed to do? Right? Like
Mm.
basically, what are my options? Or what is my exit strategy? And yeah, man, it's and then he what I loved about it was he said I have a 55-inch television, And this is what back in 87, 88. So that was, those big TVs. Those were the big televisions back then. And then he goes, once in a while, I hear just say no, or the other commercial I love is when they say this is your brain on drugs. And what was big about the just say no, that was done by Nancy Reagan. And Nancy Reagan's husband, Ronald Reagan, was the president of the United States at that time. And if you know anything about Reagan and the crack epidemic, it was ironic that she would be the one saying just say no when her husband was involved with getting crack into the Black communities.
Yeah, they call it the Reaganomics.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was the Iran Contra or something like that. It was, yeah, but it was a ring to but yeah, it was just interesting about, the whole thing, how, the people who he mentioned in the lyrics were the ones bringing the drugs in. And you can't sell, and looking back at it, people become addicted because it's a coping mechanism for trauma. So if you
Mm.
have a highly traumatized neighborhood, society, environment, then you can easily put anything in there. Crack, meth, sugar, which is the drug. This is a drug most people don't consider a drug. Which is, from what I've read, the only thing more addictive than sugar is heroin. So you put that into communities and they will gorge upon it. And it's not because these people are crackheads or anything like that. It's because they're suffering from something else and they need an escape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened in the Black communities.
Wow, wow, that is definitely true. And I'm glad that you did throw in sugar with that. But I do want to just go back in reverse just a little and talk about you acclimating to the United States. You said you came in middle school, so that's
Mhm,
different than coming in elementary school, even though it is a transition.
mhm.
What and how did you acclimate to this new world, so to speak?
Oh, it was rough. It wasn't easy. Uh, Assimilation took a long time. And then as I got older and became comfortable in my skin, I realized I didn't need to assimilate because the stuff I was trying to adjust to wasn't stuff I should be looking up to or, want to be around. So, but it was tough. I'll give you an example. In Guyana in school, I'm originally from Guyana, South America. It's northeast of Brazil and east of Venezuela. So it's on the northeast tip of South America. So geographically, I'm South American, but culturally, I'm Caribbean.
Yes.
Uh, so um, so yeah, sixth and seventh grade. I mean, seventh and eighth grade. Here in the United States, I would stand up to answer a question in class because that's how we answered questions in school. So it's just a different, like it was a big culture shock. And at that time, in Guyana, I was accustomed to listening to Yellow Man. And then, I came here and my friends at the time, one like music, a style of music named freestyle. So I was listening to like Stevie B and Company B and stuff like that. And then I had another friend who was big into Public Enemy and KRS-One.
Okay. Yes. Did you enjoy them too?
Yeah, I mean it was different. I listened to Red Alert and Kiss FM Friday nights and Marley Marl, and Mr. Magic Rap Attack. I listened to all of that. So it was interesting. So I came aboard doing it wasn't the very beginnings of hip hop, but that's when it started to blow up with Run DMC, LL Cool J. I remember like watching Friday night videos, and the only hip hop video that got any airtime during that era was Run DMC and Aerosmith, Walk This Way.
Yes, that
You
was the
know,
combined.
yeah.
Yes.
So, but yeah, but the, the real hip hop didn't get any airplay. So it's funny now that VH1 and stuff would have an award ceremony for hip hop, but back in those days, VH1 did not play hip hop videos.
No, you're absolutely right. I definitely remember that definitely process. So let's talk about you being a connoisseur of reggae dance hall and rocksteady. Now, let me be
Mhm.
very clear. The only thing I knew about rocksteady, I think it was the whispers they had. Rock
Oh yeah,
steady.
85. Yeah.
So give us, I'm a novice. I know very little. So give us your perspective. One, how did you even become a connoisseur? And two, anything else you want to just give us novice, or even the ones that may be an expert out there and I don't know of.
All right, so let me take it back. Let me give some backstory to the music, and then I think it'll make sense. In Jamaica, so rocksteady is a type of music that was born in Jamaica. But prior to rocksteady being born, there was a form of music called mento, and then it was ska and stuff like that. But the folks living in Jamaica used to pick up the airwaves from the radio stations in New Orleans, right? More than 1,200 miles away or 1,100 miles away. And it's because the AM radio signals at night would bounce off a layer in the atmosphere and travel really far. So in New Orleans, you have all this blues and jazz and, this basically a gumbo of music. And the folks in Jamaica were getting that, and then they created their own. So it started off at Mento, and then eventually, I don't think Rocksteady was the next iteration, but it became Rocksteady was born in the 60s.
Mm.
And a lot of the dance hall from the 80s, they sampled the rhythms or the beats from from the 60s. So just as how James Brown is the father of hip hop because people sampled his beats a lot, Alton Ellis would be the father of dancehall because people sampled a lot of the Jamaican producers in the 80s and early 90s sample those beats that he used to sing over. And also the back in Jamaica, there was a style called toasting or chatting. And this guy by the name of King Stitt, and you had a few others, U-Roy and I-Roy. I'm not listing all of them. You had several others. What they would do is they would talk over the instrumental of a song, right? And then when the mass migration began in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, a lot of Jamaican immigrants migrated to the South Bronx. And one of them was Kool Herc. And he
Mm.
brought the same stuff. You play the instrumental, or it's now called the breakbeat, and you would talk or chat over it. You would rap over it. And that's how hip hop was born. So it's an interesting triangle going from New Orleans to Jamaica, and then Jamaica to the South Bronx. And that's how hip hop was born.
You know, it goes back to what I mentioned at the very beginning, how everything is an ecosystem and we're all connected, even though we may not actually know it, because I think bits of our history has been changed or given here, given there. But when we really bring it all together, we're like, wait a minute, it's all connected. It all has its time to push this way or push this way, or as you say, a triangle. And I love that. I had no idea. So you're definitely teaching me on that. With that being said, can you think of or share some of the, just for my audience to be able to do some reference work, some songs or some of the artists that's connected to the songs that maybe benefit either now or later? Like, for
Sure.
example,
Go ahead, go ahead.
no, 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 you're fine. Go ahead.
So I could think, well, Alton Ellis, Hortense Ellis's sister, guy by the name of Slim Smith and the Uniques. You had the Heptones, I'm drawing a blank now. Scatolites, so those are from the 60s. Um, and then from the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, the producers who sampled a lot of that stuff One of my favorites is Donovan Jermaine. He did a lot of work with a young Buju Banton when Buju came out in '92 when he was 19 years old. So Donovan Jermaine and Dave Kelly, or known as Dave Rude Boy Kelly, they worked together. Steely and Clevie, they wrote the soundtrack to my life. Yeah, most of the a beat in Jamaica is called a rhythm, and a lot of
Wait,
artists.
I need to stop you for a second
Okay,
because you said that fast and it
let me
was a little bit of a New York accent. So,
now let me slow down. So if you make a beat, like typically in hip hop, only a beat is used for one song, right? Unless it's Bad Boy, they'll use the beat several times. But in Jamaica, a beat is called a rhythm. And on a rhythm, you would have several artists making songs on that rhythm. And Steely and Clevie, they made the most popular rhythms in the late 80s. Like the vast majority of the hit songs were produced by Steely and Clevie.
mm,
So most people don't speak about them, they speak about the artists. But you've heard the artists before, Supercat, Shabba Ranks, Capleton, stuff like that. But it's those producers, King Jammy, Steely and Clevie, Sly and Robbie, who came out with they played a lot of instruments, so a lot of the rhythms that you have heard, they were the ones in the studio playing it. But in '92, they came out with a rhythm by the name of Bam Bam.
mm.
And the Bam Bam rhythm is still popular to this day. And the song by Shaka Demus and Pliers, Murder She Wrote, was on the Bam Bam rhythm.
Well, you know what? Everything is always circular. I just recently found out, I think it was on Wednesday, you had contacted me. Someone on a short stated that the song Murder She Wrote was alluding to a young lady having an abortion. I
Unfortunately.
had no
Neither.
idea. Okay. And that's one of the questions I have where you have no idea. But I was like, wow. So I went and I looked at the lyrics, and the lyrics definitely talked about who she was and what she did and why she was getting an abortion. I was like, oh my gosh. So how old were you, or did you just recently find out about that as well?
I saw that same clip on social media a few weeks ago.
Hey, we all get educated in some way or form through social media. I mean, if I get the information, I just don't take it for what it is. I go and do research. It's like, oh, wow, I had no idea. And with me being a lover of music, I love to find out about those things. So let's talk about, since we're already in that energy of this song, can you identify a song that as a child you sung, you enjoyed it, and then when you became an adult, you're like, wait, I've been saying all this time, I've been saying that, and this is definitely not what it's all about. Can you identify a song?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about Musical Youth past the Dutchie because I didn't know they were talking about smoking weed.
Oh, when they
When I
said pass the Dutchie, yeah,
right. Yeah.
okay.
So I
I never
remember
knew
that.
their name.
Yeah. They made a version off of oh man, what is the name? I'm drawing a blank right now, but it's a very popular Jamaican group that made the original version, and they changed it to Dutchy so it wouldn't sound like weed. But it's not coming to me right now. But yeah, it's a remake of an older popular song.
And again, I didn't know it was past the, it was referencing to past the weed.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's a great perspective as well. I remember seeing the video and they seemed like they were having a lot of fun. I didn't know if they were really Caribbean or it was somewhere in a uh European island, but I just remember the video and I enjoyed it, and it had that beat past the Dutchie, and you
yeah,
just, you know, you
right.
what is that? Was that Rocksteady? Is
Nah,
that
that was
part of
because the name of the rhythm is Full Up. So that's a classic dancehall rhythm, one of the foundational rhythms for dancehall. But they did it and like they Americanized it, and yeah. So it's the name of the rhythm is Full Up.
Okay, full up. Okay,
Hmm.
see, I'm
So like that's like the weed rhythm. When you hear that, you hear the horns and stuff. Like
wow. Okay, well, I'm learning something. Thank you. So let's go back and just talk about at the very beginning. I did introduce you and I said that you were a geologist.
Mhm.
What was the catalyst for you? Did you originally say, I wanted to be a geologist, or it just kind of opened up and you said, this is what I want to do? Talk about that.
I was a business administration major in college originally, and I didn't like it. In retrospect, I should have done marketing. That would have been more beneficial. Business administration was too generalized. So I wanted a degree where I felt once I graduated, regardless of the ranking of the school that I attended, because I went to CUNY, City University of New York, York College. So regardless of where I attended, where I graduated from, my degree would have some weight, right? So I decided to, you do some electives. I did 2 geology classes, got A's. I was very interested in it. As a kid, I liked playing in dirt. And
We know
um,
now that's a blessing.
yes, so I decided to switch over. So I had to do an additional 60 credits.
Wow.
Yeah, so because I needed the prerequisites, so I needed a year of chemistry, a year of bio, plus the geology courses.
Wow. So one thing I did see that you are a STEM educator, and your STEM education you directed towards our young people. With that being said, are you encouraging them to go down that path in geology? And how have you seen, has it been a good response?
Um, yeah, because okay, most African American students graduate with degrees in psychology, sociology, English, and there's not much you can do with it once you get out, or African American studies. So the STEM fields, even though they're more difficult, um, once you graduate, you can do the things you would like to do post college.
Mm,
So, because you graduate with a now psychology and sociology, they're very powerful degrees if combined with something else. So, psychology, for example, psychology and sociology would help with marketing,
because it's
right?
broad. It's broad.
Right. And so you can get into understanding people. You could use that knowledge of people, of individuals and groups in marketing. But psychology and sociology on their own, you're not making a lot of money coming out. The thing is, though, we have a lot of students about, a lot of African Americans are going to college, but the graduation rates aren't the same as the folks going in. And I think that's related to trauma. So people a lot of times they because of the stuff that's going on that's now coming up as adults, as young adults, it hinders their ability to take on difficult subject matter. So, they may have intentions of doing one thing and then switch to an easier major just to get out. But when you get out, you have a bunch of student debt and not much flexibility in terms of moving forward career wise. So I would encourage folks to go to STEM, but it's unrealistic to encourage folks to do that without recognizing the hidden stuff that's holding them back from attempting and completing it, or
And
attempting then completing.
when you say the hidden stuff, are you talking about the internal stuff that we hold within us? You mentioned earlier about traumas. If we're not able to me, if you have trauma, that's now blockage. And if you have blockage, it's going to affect your day to day, or as I say,
Right,
your lifing.
right.
Do you believe, and I think everybody, not just us, have that different blockage. What do you think is the solution for the young people that are going through college that come up to these barriers and they say, let me do something less? How would you push them to say, move past that, get some help? Or a lot of times they don't have access to help. Can you suggest something that they can do for self to get through those barriers?
I'm glad that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. Most recently, I was helping a young woman who I knew when I was going to church a long time ago. And my wife and I were helping her parents to get her into college. And one of the things I mentioned to her was make sure that you go to a school that provides counseling
Mm,
because it's always good to be able to have someone to talk to. So now you could deal with the stuff you're going through. And if you're at that point where you could identify stuff from the past that is currently affecting you, then you could help clear away some of that stuff. I like to refer to the brain as a computer, and trauma to me is like a bunch of programs running in the background that you don't even know are open.
mm,
So now you want to run something that's memory heavy, like Photoshop or something like that, and or have a STEM major, and you can't run those programs because you have all those open programs running in the background. So what therapy does, it helps you identify those programs that are open and slowly close them. So then you
mm,
could free up your processor to do what you want to do. So therapy helps you deal with what you're going through currently, and then eventually helps you to deal with the stuff from the past. And tutoring is critical because the education that most kids receive in the inner cities, unless they went to a special program that exposed them to STEM, they wouldn't have any exposure to it. All they're exposed to is testing. So, getting a tutor, um, taking a remedial course, but just don't see, okay, well, because a lot of, and here's the other thing too that's unfair. A lot of colleges in those popular majors, those high money majors, like being a doctor or something like that, they have weed out courses. So that initial class, that first class, is held in the largest lecture hall, and it's purposely made difficult so as to weed out the people who don't have that rigor. So, so I have a friend who's a doctor, and he went to a university in the South, and he told me about that, right? And so have you have to have that resilience see built in where you're like, okay, I'm not going to give up. I am going to pull a few all-nighters. This is normal. There's nothing wrong with me. And that resiliency is difficult to install by yourself during school while you're taking a difficult course. And just as some backstory, I remember when I used to work with kids in that STEM program, I would, before we began, I would show them a couple of music videos. One of them was the Nas, I Know I Can, be what I want to
yes,
be. And the
yes.
other one would be either Love's Gonna Get You by KRS-One or Boogie Down Productions or You Must Learn by Boogie Down Productions. And then I would have them read affirmations. And it would be, I am smart, I believe in myself. And, like if I fail, I'll try again, stuff like that. And a lot of times these are kids in the fifth grade, third grade, sixth grade. On several occasions, they wouldn't read it or they would start crying when they're reading it. So at a very young age, that light is being put out in children.
Wow.
So it could be, and a lot of times it's the parents, you dumb, you're doing this, whatever, and they internalize it,
Wow.
and that stuff goes with them.
Well, let me say this. It takes all of us to help change things. And just by you giving that child the first step to say, listen, it's more to it. Just think if you had not done it at a young age, they are now maybe adults. And now you're adults, you're a little bit more guarded. You may not say what you really feel because you may not trust the person. So I do think, I'm saying all this for a reason. I do think it's very important that we start with our babies very young. I agree with you 1,000% about the background information or the background systems that are running. It must be shut down. I'm not a big Bible thumper, but it says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. If you transform your mind, I believe you can move forward on so many other things, but you have to get that replay out. Someone can tell you you're great, but if you're replaying in your mind that you're not great, you're going to fail. The outcome will be that because we are manifestors and we manifest what we truly, truly believe. So I'm a big proponent of STEM. I believe that we have always been the creative of multiple things, but it's just not told. It's told on a scale that's so small. For example, we have Mansa Musa. He was the most wealthiest man to this day, but you still have people referencing to Bill Gates or to these other people. My point is, if we don't get the correct information out and tell the full story, our children, ourselves, we will always suffer. And it's just telling the truth. It's not saying anything is better. We just want to tell the truth. And if you dig down in the weeds, you'll really find out, oh, they took, oh, we were already doing that, but they took it. Oh, I didn't know we already did that. So I digress, but I did want to just acknowledge that part that we have to get that background information out.
Well, I completely agree. And the thing I don't like about the way some things are done here, it's in the United States, it's almost a lot of times it almost justifies slavery. Because it's
Okay.
like, because if you don't speak about what was done, what we were doing prior to slavery, then it almost makes it seem like the intelligence we gathered were from white folks. And thankfully for them, they took us out the tree and they taught us how to read and write. And we were able to invent the straightening cone and stuff like that. But we were doing inventions prior to or us being enslaved or after we were free. And that stuff is never mentioned in the schools. And it's always just like, oh, you know, this guy played with the he played with the peanuts and made peanut oil or something, but the white man invented a spaceship. So like, I mean, you know, like that stuff is internalized, like it pales in comparison. But if you teach African history and not just Egyptian history, but what was going on, like you said about Mansa Musa and his pilgrimage and what was going on in deepest, darkest Africa, where we are from, then I think children can have, they could say, okay, well, this is, we did do this, but those inventions are never spoken about, or, you know, they're stolen. Someone else takes claim for them.
Well, here's my thing. I think I know I have a voice. You have a voice. We have to continue to talk about those things. We have to draw references to, like, for example, if they say, oh, this, oh, I know someone that did this eons ago. We have to continue to tell our story. And let's be very clear. We have inhabited every place on this earth, and we have made a difference. And we're the mothers and the fathers. And I mean, that's the reality. It's not just me saying it. They go in and do scientific research and they confirm this. It's just not me saying that. I'm not saying that to be cocky because I do believe this. And I'm very, very clear on this. I try the spirit by the spirit. I don't care how you look. If your spirit is not right and you're not working in the intention to uplift humanity, I'm not messing with you. I'm not playing with you. So I do believe in that. And we got to continue to tell our stories so our children know all these beautiful things that we have to offer. And it wasn't just yesterday or somebody grabbing our hands and showing us. We've always been inventors.
Well said. Well said.
With that being said, let's talk about music again.
Okay. Yeah, we got a little heavy.
Yes, yes, we did, but it's okay. It's our truth. Um, let's talk about a song that you were able to purchase as a child without anybody influence. You know, you may have made some money during summertime or you received some money during Christmas, and you're like, I get to pick whatever I want, whoever I want, without anybody's influence. Can you identify a song?
Um, I bought a Yellow Man anthology, I think from Greensleeves as a teen, and it just brought back a lot of those songs I remember listening to. Because when Yellow Man became famous in the United States, it wasn't the same type of music that he got famous for when he first came out in 83.
Really?
Yeah. So like One of Yellow Man's popular songs in the US is Blueberry Hill, right? So it's the cover of was it Fats Domino or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I know him for like Soldier Tech Over, Zoom Zoom, stuff like that. The stuff produced by Henry Junjo Laws. That was his producer for Volcano. And he made a lot of those songs. So like, so yeah, so I like the pre-Americanization of Yellow Man.
Okay. Speaking of Yellow Man, I think he was the first, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, visual representation of an albino.
Um, I don't know, but it would make sense.
Because before that, now it's mainstream. Before that, it was a stigma that
Yeah,
because they were albino, they were something of no good or whatever. And I felt like he came in and was the person that kind of broke the barrier with that,
right.
being
And
an
there's yeah,
albino.
yeah, and in Jamaica it was a negative thing, and he turned it into being sexy. It
Hmm.
was Yellow Man, I think Purple Man. I think Purple Man was also an albino at the
Never
time.
heard, never
Yeah.
heard of Purple Man.
So yeah, so Yellow Man became like after Bob Marley died, um, dancehall started becoming popular, and Yellow Man drove dancehall
Mm.
internationally.
Speaking of Bob Marley, we can't get off without talking about him. How do you feel about his legacy? And do you believe, from my perspective, being a native of Las Vegas, being an American, I felt like Bob Marley really put Jamaica on the map and really connected. And I'm not basing it off the recent
Movie.
movie. That movie,
Mm,
I'm gonna keep my comment to myself. I saw a documentary, I think it was back in 2013, and it was so well done about Bob Marley, his family. They had his wife come on, his lovers, all those different things. I wept. That's just how heartfelt this documentary was. And I thought it would be something close to it with the movie. But anyway, it is what it is. How do you feel about Bob Marley and his legacy and what he has connected the world with? One love.
see. Okay, I don't know much about Bob Marley. Um, like I said, when I think of reggae, I think of Yellow Man, then I think of Shabba Ranks. Those are the
Mm.
two icons to me.
Shaba.
But yes, so Shabba was like he took the baton from Yellow Man, and in the late '80s, early '90s, Shabba was king of the dance hall. But unfortunately, the dark skinned reggae artists aren't the ones who were pushed. It was so it was Bob Marley, and then more recently it was Shaggy and Sean Paul.
Mm.
But it's the dark skinned ones, Capleton. The list goes on. Shaka Demus, Nicodemus, Junior Demus.
Wow.
Those artists are the ones that carry the music, and especially Shabba Ranks, but and the songs from Bob Marley that are pushed are the ones you hear in the resorts, right? But the songs like War and Crazy Ballheads, they don't play those songs. Those are the songs I remember. If you listen to the lyrics, um, especially War about, a color of a man's skin and stuff like that. Those are the Bob Marley songs I like. So I feel Bob Marley is kind of like Martin Luther King in a way where the watered down I Have a Dream speech is
Mm-hmm.
the one that
Mm-hmm.
people promote, but the
Mm-hmm.
truly influential stuff, stays shuttered in a box somewhere.
Well, and I have to agree with you. I think it's that pre-packaged so we can give it to everyone. But their real truth, like let's just talk about Bob Marley, No Woman, No Cry, things like that. He has where he's talking about the truth, how they want you to be quiet about different things. But you're right. I agree with you. They give you that pre-package of Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther King was also talking about some good stuff like, hey, injustice everywhere is it they just take little pieces and clip it together and they repeat it over and over again. And we think that's what it is unless we
Right.
do research and really find out who they are. So I agree with you. I think that is a excellent reference. So before we get out of here, I would love for you. I do have one more question, but before we get out of here, I would love for you to provide any upcoming things that you're dealing with, any social media handles, any LinkedIn, anything. So if someone goes, wow, not only I like the information he provided about reggae dance hall and rocksteady, I also want to find out more about geology or excuse me, yeah, geology and all those different things. Can you provide some information if people want to get in contact with you?
Sure. So my handle on social media is Composter Kwesi. So it's COMPOSTERKWESI. And that's my LinkedIn, and that's also my Instagram. I have a Facebook page, but I think I'm going to discontinue it because it's connected to the LinkedIn. So it's and I have a YouTube channel, pardon me, but that's just to post interviews that I've done. So I appeared on the Weather Channel a couple years ago, and I have that on the YouTube channel.
Mm,
If I could say one more thing about reggae, though,
absolutely.
I would love, because I just want to put it out there. I used to play Grand Theft Auto, that video game, and I would love to be able to do a reggae channel for them, like one like from
Wow.
like that. If they're doing a game in like that 89, 90, 91, 92 era. I lived in the clubs during that time. I know the songs. I know this how to sequence the songs. I would love to make like a reggae channel for Grand Theft Auto.
Well, everything is everything. I'm an old school. They said closed mouth will never get fed. I'm glad you said that. I do have someone that I work with professionally that is in the gaming area. And I will mention that this person, and he may even know someone. So listen, and if it does happen, you need to come back on an interview and say, listen, this place was the catalyst for that. But before we get out of here, I have one last question, and it is regarding music. If you had the opportunity to dedicate a song to the world that represents parts of you or all of you, what song would you choose to share with the world?
Hmm. It'd probably be Slim Smith, Rougher Yet. Um, it's a song, to me, it's a song about resilience. And and it's also a name of a rhythm because the artists, the producers in the 80s used that song Rougher Yet, and they made a lot of songs off of it. Um, but yeah, if you listen to the lyrics of that song by Slim Smith, and it talks about don't give up, it gets rougher yet, you fight every day. And it's going to be rougher yet, So that song represents me. I'm resilient.
I love that. And that's the song you would dedicate to the world that represents you.
Definitely. Well,
I
one
love
of one of many, but that's the one I would pick off the top of my head.
I love that. And I'm going to clap that up because I've never heard that song. So when I get off, I'm going to go do research and listen to that song. First of all, I just cannot express how much I appreciate you. One, for saying yes. Two, taking your Friday to be on this program. And three, I really have been able to be a student today. I've learned a lot of things I'm going to replay and write down and say, oh, okay, and find it. And hopefully my audience will do the same. But one thing I always say, I talk about the journey and the destination. The journey is where we learn and where we grow. The destination is where we celebrate. I feel like too many of us, we will work, 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 and we don't celebrate so we can appreciate that. And that's what a destination. We're going to celebrate, we're going to love each other, we're going to have fun. But the key to it all is to get back into that journey so we can continue to learn and grow and then wait for maybe, hopefully, the next destination. I say all that to say again, thank you with my women that come on. I bow to them. With the men, I salute. So I salute you, sir. I appreciate you. And before we get out here, I always give my audience the last word. So is there anything you would like to say with that's from your heart or whatever you have?
Uh, get therapy. If there's some stuff bothering you, when I first started going through my stuff, when my childhood stuff, started affecting me as an adult, I went to church. And church is like getting a good massage, but it wears off and you're still not dealing with the core issues. So therapy works. And also, if you want to help take care of the soil, take care of your plants, read up about rock dust. You don't have to add a lot of it. You mix your rock dust with your compost. And I'm looking forward to, I have a business idea I did. I'm also in business school. I'm doing my executive MBA at Cornell. And one of my goals after I graduate is to create a business that sells a product that includes rock dust.
Ooh, you better keep in touch with me because I definitely want to hear about it. And you can come on and promote it on this channel as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That is amazing. You guys, please, please put your hand together and thank my amazing special guest, Kwesi. Am I getting it right?
Kwesi, it's close enough.
Kwesi.
I have friends from high school that still mispronounce my name.
I apologize.
No problem. No problem.
You guys, please give Kwesi Joseph a round of applause. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And as I say to all my guests, I'll see you out here in these Las Vegas streets. So take care.